Well, Casey, why are you acting so surprised? We've always known that the WNBA doesn't know how to treat their stars properly. I'm not talking about the WNBA and the egregious way they treat the Great White Hope. Not only does this dump not know how to create stars, the disrespect, the outright defiance, it is coming from the president of the Indiana Felines, which means this is coming from Caitlin Clark's own.
Weeks now, fans have been sounding the alarm whether in comment sections, Reddit threads, or across social media platforms. People have been pointing out what's been happening right in front of us. The WNBA's biggest star was taking hit after hit, and no one was stepping in to stop it. The pattern was obvious. The fouls weren't just physical, they were systemic. And the question lingered, when would someone finally take action? Well, the response finally came, but not how anyone imagined. There was no whistle from the officials. No press release from league leadership. Instead, the message came through numbers. Cold, undeniable, financial, a staggering 48% drop in All-Star Game ticket prices the moment Caitlin Clark was out of the picture. The news of Caitlin Clark's injury hit like a shockwave. This wasn't just another hard foul from JCS Sheldon, it turned into a multi-million-dollar blunder. And with it, the league's true priorities were laid bare. Suddenly, it became crystal clear what it actually takes for the WNBA to step in and protect its most valuable player. Now we're going to break it all down. From the moment of impact to the injury itself and the financial scramble happening behind the scenes. If you're here for the truth, the league quietly hopes you ignore. Hit that like button to let us know you're paying attention. So let's cut through the distractions and get straight to the facts. To understand how one injury triggered such a massive economic ripple, we need to rewind the tape. It all started on July 15, 2025. The Indiana Fever were squaring off against the Connecticut Sooner matchup that's quietly turned into one of the most consistently dangerous for Clark all season.
Share this whole clip because I don't know how much she wants the video of her basically crying on the court to be circulated around, but she walks down to the end of the court. You can tell that she's in pain. You can tell that there's something wrong. She goes to the, what's it called, like stanchion or whatever, the thing that holds up the basketball hoop on the other end. She hits her head on it. She is fighting back tears and she walks straight over to the bench. Now, when she goes over to the bench, she starts crying, and I've honestly never seen Caitlin Clark cry on the court except when she lost the national championship game. She keeps it together.
The tension that had been simmering for weeks finally erupted. With under a minute remaining and the Fever comfortably ahead, Clark executed a sharp backdoor feed to a teammate. But as she pivoted to get back on defense, she collided with Connecticut's JCS Sheldon. At first glance, it might have looked like a routine in-game moment, nothing out of the ordinary. But the aftermath told a different story. Clark immediately winced and reached for her right groin, the very spot that's been a lingering issue throughout her turbulent 2025 campaign. This wasn't just another knock. It was a breaking point. What happened next revealed everything. This wasn't just a quick wince, followed by a few limping steps. This was something more serious. Clark, true to her relentless nature, tried to tough it out and stay on the floor, but her expression said it all. This was the moment her body finally said enough. After one more possession, she slowed to a halt, grabbed at her groin once again, and made her way toward the baseline. And right there off the ball, with the cameras still focused on her, the mask slipped. This wasn't about a turnover or a missed opportunity. It was the breaking point of a player who's been carrying the burden of an entire league, game after game.
So, the big way they were able to neutralize Caitlin Clark, and I think it was almost an issue with Stephanie White as much as anything, is they were manhandling her. They were manhandling Caitlin Clark early in that game. Like, they had two hands on her. They were fully getting into the we are grabbing her and we don't really care. Like, that was their goal. Their goal was they were out there to maul Caitlin Clark. They had they had absolutely no intention of doing anything other than mauling Caitlin Clark. Like, they were not out there to play legit defense. They were there to maul Caitlin Clark as much as...
Let's put this moment into perspective, because if you've been following Caitlin Clark's journey, you know this wasn't just about pain. For an athlete of her caliber, that kind of visible vulnerability is rare. We're talking about a competitor who's taken elbows, shoulders, and hard fouls all season without so much as a reaction. This is the same player who's already battled through a quad strain and a separate groin injury on the left side earlier in the year. So what happened here wasn't just the result of a single collision, it was the breaking point after months of relentless physical abuse, inconsistent officiating, and the crushing responsibility of being the league's biggest draw. It was the moment she realized her body had betrayed her again just days before she was set to headline the All-Star game she helped put on the map. Watching her break down like that, it hit different. Let's be honest. How often do you see a marquee athlete, in their prime, emotionally unravel in front of a live audience? It was rare, raw, and hard to witness. Drop a comment if you felt like this was about more than just physical pain, because for many, that moment wasn't just emotion. It was a warning, a silent alarm. And within 24 hours, that alarm turned into an official statement that rocked both the league and its financial foundations. It wasn't a carefully worded press release from the Fever. It wasn't a quiet update posted online. The news hit the airwaves loud and clear, broadcasted nationally, confirming every fear that fans and front office executives had been dreading.
Our show, though, with unfortunate news out of the WNBA. Caitlin Clark announced today that she will miss both the three-point contest and the WNBA All-Star game this upcoming weekend in Indiana after re-aggravating a groin injury in that.
And just like that, it became official. The league's brightest star, the one who shattered records with 1.3 million fan votes, was out of the All-Star lineup. This wasn't just any player being sidelined. This was the player, the centerpiece, the headliner. She wasn't just participating, she was supposed to lead it all. Team captain, three-point contest favorite, and the face of the weekend spectacle. In Indiana, for fans who paid to be there, she was the event. And this is where everything took a turn. The WNBA is no stranger to managing PR drama. They know how to issue statements when officiating gets messy. They can respond to controversies with press releases and try to shift the conversation. But this time, they were up against something they couldn't spin. A situation too big to bury. Because the fallout wasn't just online chatter, it was financial. This wasn't about trending hashtags or hot takes. The impact hit the league's bottom line. And the proof, it wasn't hidden in internal memos or sugar-coated in media briefings. It was right there in plain sight for the public, the media, and the markets to witness. A single number told the entire story. A number so significant, it reframed the issue from a matter of player protection to a full-on financial emergency. Within just 24 hours of Clark being ruled out, All-Star game ticket prices on the resale market took a nosedive, dropping a staggering 48%. Let's not sugarcoat it. A near 50% drop overnight is catastrophic in any industry. This wasn't a minor adjustment, it was a market-wide correction. Fans opted not to spend. Resellers were forced to slash prices. Entire sections of the crowd suddenly saw the event as not worth the cost. And that wave of decisions sent a clear, unified message to WNBA leadership: without Caitlin Clark, your product loses half its value. Think about the domino effect. That 48% figure isn't just a stat, it represents millions of dollars potentially wiped from the host city's revenue stream. Ticket sales, hotel bookings, merchandise, dining, it all shrinks when the main attraction disappears. That's the million-dollar mistake you saw in the thumbnail. And here's the brutal truth. This is the kind of language the league does understand. Remember, this is the same organization that launched the Commissioner's Cup and tied $500,000 in prize money to it to drive performance and viewer interest. They get the importance of financial stakes. So when the biggest showcase of the year collapses nearly 50% in value overnight, it's a red alert moment they simply can't brush off. T's also the first hard evidence supporting what industry insiders have warned about for months. If Clark's health deteriorates, the league isn't just losing a player, it's losing its top attraction, its financial backbone. But here's the thing, this didn't come out of nowhere. This wasn't a freak injury or a one-time slip. This crisis was a slow-motion train wreck, years in the making. It was a foreseeable outcome of repeated decisions or indecisions by the league. If we want to understand how we got here, we need to rewind. Because what just happened wasn't a twist of fate. It was the direct result of a pattern of neglect that fans, analysts, and insiders have been shouting about for months. From the very beginning of her rookie season, Clark was being targeted with a level of physicality that far exceeded anything remotely normal.
Round thrown to the floor during games, and teammates are standing there just looking, not doing anything. Sophie Cunningham will do something. While other players get a microphone put in front of them, doing their media interviews, while they regurgitate the same nonsense, the same word salad that Stephanie White lies says, Sophie Cunningham will say, no.
This wasn't your typical welcome to the league rookie treatment. It went far beyond that. It was targeted, it was deliberate, and its purpose was simple. Wear her down, don't take our word for it. Analysts were literally calling it mauling, and it wasn't the tactic of one team. This was a repeated strategy being silently approved through the league's inaction. Want undeniable proof that the WNBA knew what was happening and chose not to step in? You don't have to look far. Just rewind to June 17th, 1 month before the All-Star injury. That day, JCS Sheldon raked Clark across the eye. Minutes later, Connecticut's Marina Mabrey delivered a blatant shove that sent her crashing to the floor, sparking a bench-clearing confrontation. And here's the most damning part. In the aftermath, the WNBA itself admitted that the referees had completely lost control of the game. They acknowledged in an official statement that key fouls were missed and players weren't being adequately protected. Let that sink in. The league openly admitted its officiating system failed a full month before the exact kind of unchecked physicality led to the injury that cost them millions. This wasn't a mistake born out of ignorance. It was a calculated gamble, a choice. And that decision created a climate where an injury like this wasn't just possible, it was inevitable. Eventually, that choice forced those closest to Caitlin Clark to break their silence. The league's confession wasn't just corporate damage control, it was confirmation for every fan, analyst, and player who had seen the red flags piling up. But as the hits kept coming and the league stayed silent, frustration started to erupt from Clark's inner circle, with officials failing to keep order and even some teammates reluctant to intervene. The responsibility to protect her started shifting elsewhere.
That I just came across, I'm like, what are we doing? Kathy Engelbert, she came out, it ain't been that long ago, like 2 weeks ago. Refereeing's pretty good in this league. In what league? What league allows this?
That's just the way things were unfolding, and since no one seemed willing to step in on the court, the people around Clark were left with no choice but to speak up off it. And leading that charge was none other than her head coach, Stephanie White. Following the chaos of the June 17th matchup, Coach White didn't mince words. She took direct aim at the league's officiating in a way you almost never see from a coach at the professional level. Her message was clear and pointed. Bad officiating is a league-wide issue. She said, everyone in the WNBA is improving except the referees. And she didn't stop there. White revealed that she had been trying to raise alarms in real time during the game. She told reporters that she had been warning the officials as early as the first quarter, making it clear that the situation was already spiraling. I knew this was coming. You could feel it building, White continued. They've got to take control. The officiating has to be better. But the frustration didn't stay inside the locker room, it spilled beyond, reaching Caitlin Clark's own family. After the July 15th injury, the one that finally forced her to the sidelines, her brother, Colin Clark, took to social media with a message that captured what countless fans were already thinking. His post, which was quickly taken down, was blunt and powerful. Make no mistake, this is on the reffing. Now here's where it gets even more telling. For those of us who pay attention to the story behind the story, the deletion of that tweet might say more than the tweet itself. In that raw moment, Colin gave voice to the family's real emotions. He said what they were all likely feeling, and the fact that it disappeared, that's a red flag. It suggests someone, whether it was a PR rep, an agent, the team, or even the league, stepped in to shut it down. Because it was a narrative they couldn't afford to let spiral out of control. What do you think really led Colin Clark to delete that tweet? Was it his own decision in hindsight, or did someone behind the scenes apply pressure maybe to protect the league's image? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because when a head coach is publicly challenging the officiating and a player's own family feels compelled to go silent, it pulls the curtain back on a deeper truth, one the league doesn't want exposed. A truth, the 48% drop in ticket prices, made impossible to ignore. So, let's connect the final pieces of this puzzle, the motive this entire video has been building toward. For months, while Caitlin Clark endured unrelenting physical play, the league remained eerily silent. The dominant narrative that circulated in question was that this was just her initiation, a welcome to the pros moment, something she needed to adjust to. But here's where the story shifts into what insiders have been whispering for months. And while it's technically still in the realm of speculation, it's a theory backed by repeated behavior and echoed by analysts across the board. The theory: the WNBA made a calculated marketing decision. Instead of building the entire spotlight around Clark's rise, they would intentionally dial down the hype around her individual stardom. Why? Because they wanted to sell a broader narrative that the league as a whole is tough, physical, and deeply competitive. Not just the Caitlin Clark show. In that marketing framework, Clark taking hits without calls wasn't a flaw, was the feature. It was positioned as evidence that the WNBA as a whole was gritty, intense, and no walk in the park. But that narrative just collapsed under its own weight. The 48% ticket price plunge exposed the strategy for what it really was: a massive miscalculation. What became crystal clear in that moment is this: the league's financial stability is directly linked to one player's well-being. Caitlin Clark's physical health isn't just a storyline, it's the backbone of the WNBA's current growth model. The plan to elevate the league by letting its star absorb the punishment didn't make the WNBA look resilient, it made it look reckless. And it led to the worst possible outcome: their most valuable players sidelined, triggering a market reaction that shook the league to its core. Which brings us to the question every fan, analyst, and investor should be asking right now. What were they thinking?